Hello everyone. We are going to start with the first question of activity based costing. And this lecture is basically for the first question of ABC. But before starting the question, let's try to recap what we did in the last class, in the last video, because in that video we discussed the basic introduction of activity based costing, right? So this is basically that slide. First of all, what we did, we identified that budgeted overheads are around 1 million. Sorry. Uh, all right. We have identified, I'm just trying to pick some another color, maybe gray. Budgeted overheads, we identified the budgeted overheads were 100,000, and if company uses absorption costing, then in absorption costing we divide 100,000 with the machine hours, right? But in case company is using absorb activity based costing, then what we did, we split 1 million into groups, and we called that those groups as cost pools, right? So we identified that there were one, two, three, four, five different cost pools. So the first thing which we did is to identify the cost pool, right? Let me try to mark this. The first thing which we did is to identify the cost pool, right? What we did next, after doing this, we identify that what should be the base, on what basis we should distribute it. So we identified cost driver, machine related cost, machine hours, not this one, machine hours for machine related costs, number of batches for batch related costs, labor hours for labor related costs, inspections for inspection related costs. So in the next step, we identified that what are the cost drivers, right? Then we calculated overhead recovery rates, right? Then we calculated overhead recovery rates. And after the calculation of overhead recovery rate, we use these rates to calculate the cost, calculate the total overheads of the product. I mean, we use these rates for the absorption of overhead, right? So this is the fourth thing which we did, absorption of overhead. Then we calculated total overheads and overhead per unit as a fifth step. And then we calculated cost per unit of the product, which is the sixth step, and obviously the selling price. So this is basically something which we did in the previous lecture. In today's lecture, we are going to start with a question, and we are going to apply all these six or seven steps in the question. So let me try to write these points here so that we can connect these points with the question, right? So the first point which we identified was the first point was to identify cost pool. Identify cost pool in the sense you need to identify that how many cost groups are given in the question. Usually it's in between 3 to 5. Usually there are 3 cost pools, 4 cost pools, or 5 cost pools, right? Usually in F5 question, typical F5 question. Then you have to identify cost driver. Identify cost driver. Cost driver in the sense, for example, if there is machine related cost, then it can be distributed on what basis? If it's labor related cost, it can be distributed on what basis? If it's quality control cost, it can be distributed on what basis, right? So you need to identify cost driver. Usually cost drivers are given in the question. You don't need to don't need to search for it. In majority of the cases, it's given in the question, right? It's not a big deal. In the third step, it's optional. You need to calculate cost driver. Now, what do you mean by calculate cost driver? I'm just writing here if required. There are certain cases when examiner says that, okay, fine, look, machine related costs can be distributed on the basis of machine hours. That's it. And examiner didn't give examiner will not give you machine hours, so you have to calculate. For example, if in case quality related costs, it can be distributed on the basis of number of inspection, but if number of inspections are not given in the question, you have to calculate it, right? So in case any cost driver is missing in the question, you have to calculate that, right? So if required, majority cases, it's given in the question, but in one or two cases, you have to calculate that, right? Then fourth requirement is what? Fourth step is what? Calculate cost driver. Then you have to calculate overhead recovery rates by dividing, and how you will calculate overhead recovery rate? You have to divide cost pool with the cost driver, right? Then what you have to do, you have to absorb. Absorb means what? Absorb means to include overheads into the cost of the product. So once you are done with the calculation of overhead recovery rates, then you have to include all these overheads into the cost of the product by using those rates. So then you have to absorb overheads into the cost of the product by using overhead recovery rates and cost driver, right? What's next? Then you have to calculate total overheads of each product, and then you have to calculate total overhead and overhead per unit. Usually overhead per unit is also required. And then you have to calculate cost per unit and selling price if required, because it's not compulsory that examiner will ask you to calculate selling price in all cases, but in few cases examiner asks you to calculate selling price, so if it's required you have to calculate it, right? So these are some basic steps of ABC. So let's see what is given in the question and then see how we can apply these steps here, right? So let's start with this question. This is a very simple question, very simple, very basic question of activity based costing. And I personally think that anyone who wants to understand activity based costing should start with this question. Now, what it says, Triple Limited makes three type of gold watches: the Diva, the Classic, and the Poser. Right. So, The company is actually manufacturing three types of the product. Right. Three types of the product: Classic, Poser, and Diva. A traditional product costing system is used at present. Traditional usually means absorption costing. Traditional doesn't means activity based costing. Activity based considered is supposed to be the new approach. So a traditional product costing system is used at present, although an ABC system is being considered. We are considering that we may switch to that. Details of the three products of a typical period are given below. Product D, product C, product P, hours per unit, labor hours per unit, and machine hours per unit both are given. Material cost per unit, that's given. You may pause this video and try to read this question at your own, otherwise you may continue. And material cost is given, and then production quantity is also given in this question, right? So these things are given. Then the question says direct labor cost is $6 per hour, and production overheads are absorbed on the basis of machine hours. The overhead absorption rate for the period is around 28 pounds per machine hour. So fortunately, examiner has given you overhead recovery rate. In case of the absence of overhead recovery rate, we have to calculate that, right? And I don't know if you remember that formula or not, but overhead absorption rate, not recovery rate. Overhead absorption rate is basically the word which we use in absorption costing. So overhead absorption rate is equals to budgeted overheads divided by budgeted activity level, right? So that's not required, but I will tell you how we can calculate that. Now, what's the first requirement? First requirement is to calculate, right? Nothing related to theory. Calculate cost per unit for each product using traditional method. Traditional method means nothing to do with ABC. Absorbing overheads on the basis of machine hours. So you have to absorb overheads on the basis of machine hours. That's the first requirement, right? So let's start with the question. Let's see what we can do. See, cost per unit, I don't know if you guys remember that or not, but in F2, we have studied that cost per unit includes two different parts. The first area is the direct cost, and the second part is called overheads, which is production overheads, right? So if you add direct cost and overheads, you will get cost per unit of the product. So let's start the calculation of prime cost, which is the direct cost. Sorry. All right. So let's start with the calculation of prime cost, right? We have three products. Yeah, product D, product C, and product P, right? I'm deliberately not doing these questions on Excel because of two reasons. First reason is that I'm giving you time to adjust yourself in F5 because these questions are very new to you guys. And the second reason is that activity based, the first section of F5, which is PM, I mean, which is costing methods, that is not, that examiner usually asks in MCQs and MTQs. So that's not the part of multiple, sorry, that is not the part of a constructive response question. So we are not going to do this because this examiner will not ask this by using Excel or Word, right? So that is a clear indication by the examiner. So there are three product D, product C, product P. Let's start with direct material cost, right? You may pause this video and try to calculate these costs at your own and then you may continue with me. Okay, so direct material cost is given here. $20 for D, $12 for C, and $25 for P. So $20 for D, $12 for C, and $25 for product P, right? Then what's next? Direct material, then we have to add direct labor cost. Direct labor cost is what? Direct labor cost is not given in here in the question. But examiner gave us this $6 per hour. $6 per hour is given. And $6 per hour is what? It's the wage rate of labor, right? So wage rate is given in the question. So we need to multiply wage rate with the labor hour. So it's simple. 6 multiplied by 1, 9. 6 multiplied by zero point 0.5 is 3. 6 multiplied by 1.5 is 9. And 6 multiplied by 1 is obviously 6. There is no direct expense, so you don't need to add that. I'm just writing it as a case that in case examiner give you direct expense, we have to include that. We will include that, right? So this is basically the total of direct cost, or it's better to write prime cost, right? 23 for the first product, 21 for the second product, and probably 31 for the third product, right? Now what we have to add? We have to add overheads to the product cost. I think this requirement was just for 3 months, right? So for 3 months, it's perfectly fine. Now overhead absorption rate is fortunately given in the question. It's 28 per machine hour. So you have to multiply it with machine hours. It's 28 per machine hour. So you have to multiply it with machine hour. So let me try to open calculator. It's very easy if you're doing it on Excel. 28 times how many machine hours? 1.5. 28 times 1.5, that makes 42. Then 28, and then 28 times 3 is 84, right? So this will give you cost per unit by using traditional method, right? This is the end of part A, right? So 23 plus 42, that makes 65. 21 plus 28 is 49, and this will be 115, most probably, right? So this is basically what? This is basically the traditional calculation of traditional absorption costing, right? Now we are moving towards its second requirement. Now second requirement is important. Let's see what we can do. All right, it says total production overheads are 654,500, right? Total overheads are, let me try to pick a different color. Total production overheads are 654,500, and further analysis shows that total overheads can be divided as follows: 30% to setup cost, 20% to machine related cost, 15% to material handling, 30% to inspection, So how many cost pools are given here? Four. Four cost pools are given here. The first cost pool is of setup. Now, what is setup? See, let me try to give you a basic idea of what these cost pools are, so that we can solve this question in a better way. Um, Setup is basically whenever you start manufacturing the product, you try to fix a setup, right? Setup of, for example, the company is manufacturing 500 units in a batch, right? So you will fix a setup of 500 units required in the manufacturing of that particular batch, right? So and one more thing, I just want to tell you, because it's important, it's really very important. Usually number of setup, number of batches, and number of production runs, sorry, usually number of setups, number of batches, and number of production runs are usually same. For example, if I'm saying that company wants to have 500 setups, then that means most probably company will operate 500 batches, right? And there will be 500 production runs, right? So setup is this. Now the next part is cost relating to machinery. Machine related cost can be depreciation, it can be it can be rent of machinery, depreciation of machinery, maintenance cost of machinery, other things, is other costs associated with the machinery, insurance kind of thing. Cost related to material handling, this is typically store department cost. Cost of material handling. Material handling is done where? Store department, right? And the last, let me check if it's recording. Yeah. And the last one is cost related to inspection. Inspection related cost. Probably quality control inspection. Now, there are four different cost pools, so we must have four different cost driver, right? So what's given here? The following total activity volumes. That means nothing is per unit, it's total. Following total activity volumes are associated with each of the product line for the period as a whole. Number of setups are total 670. Number of material movements are 120, and number of inspections are 1000. Now try to pause this video for a while and try to link these cost drivers with the cost pool given here, and try to identify that which cost driver can be related to which cost pool. You may pause this video. Alright, it's simple. Setup related cost can be distributed on the basis of number of setups, right? So this cost can be associated with the first one, right? Number of material movements. Material movements is what? Material movement is something which is related to the store department. You are moving material from one place to the another. You are moving material from store to production and production to store. So this cost driver is related to which cost? Setup is done. We are left with machinery, material handling, inspection. Material handling, right? So material handling can be distributed on the basis of movement, material movement. Then it's number of inspection. Now number of inspection can be used where? We are left with machinery and sorry, we are left with machinery and inspection. So inspection related cost can be distributed on the basis of number of inspection. The only thing which is left here is the machine related cost. How you will distribute machine related cost? Sorry. How you will distribute machine related cost? See, don't force anything, right? Uh, all of these three cost drivers has nothing to do with the machine hours, right? So don't forcefully fix and don't forcefully create any link between cost driver and cost pool. On what basis machine related cost can be distributed? The best answer is machine hours. So machine hours are not given here. Machine hours are not given in part B, but machine hours are given in part A, right? Let me try to change the color. Machine hours are given in part A, right? So we will use these machine hours for the calculation of machine related cost, right? So what was the first step we identified? The first step we identified was to identify a cost pool. We are done with that. Identify cost driver. We are just done with that. We need to calculate any cost driver if required. See, number of setups are given, number of material movements are given, number of inspections are given. Number of machine hours are not given. We will calculate later whenever is required. So now we are moving towards the calculation of overhead recovery rate, right? So this is basically the B part which we are going to do now. B part is actually not included in the original question. I actually plugged in this question because I believe that in the first question it's important to solve the question step by step, right? So first of all, we are calculating overhead recovery rate. Then we will calculate cost per unit of for each of the product by using ABC principles to two decimal places. And then there are two theoretical parts, so we'll do it later. Right now we are focusing on B and C. So let's start with the calculation of overhead recovery rates, right? Okay, so we are going to start with the calculation of part B, which is the calculation of overhead recovery rates, right? So the first one is setup related cost, right? Setup related cost, it says 35% of the total overheads, right? And what are the total overheads? Total overheads are 654,500. These are the total overheads, right? So 654,500, sorry, 654,500 multiply by what? Multiply by 35%. This one, right? So times 0.35, that makes around 229075. 229075. This is what? This is 35%, right? Divided by what? Divided by number of setups. Number of setups are given in the question. It's 670. So what will be the rate? Divided by 670. It's 341.9. It's 341.9 per setup, right? Now, the next one is machine related cost. Machine related cost is around 20%, right? So let's calculate 20% first. 654,500 times 20%, it's 130,900. Divided by machine hours are not given here. Machine hours are given in part A, right? Now, don't add these three numbers. Don't do this mistake. We have to calculate total machine hours, right? So let's try to calculate total machine hours. Let's write some working number 1 here. Let's do working number 1 in this part. Machine hours required for product D, machine hours required for product C, and machine hours required for product P. We are calculating machine hours, right? So how many units we have to manufacture for product D? 750 units for product D, 750 units for D, and 1 unit require 1.5 hours, right? So 750 into 1.5, it's 1125. It's 1125. Then the second product is C. We need to manufacture 1250 units of the second product. And how many machine hours are required? 1 machine hour. So it's simple. And product P. Product P, we need to manufacture 7,000 units of product P. And how many machine hours? 3 machine hours per unit. That makes 21,000. So overall machine hours will be what? Machine hours will be 1125 plus 1250 plus 21,000. That makes 23375, right? So we will divide this figure with 23375. So 130,900 divided by 23375, that makes around $5.6 per machine hour. Right? It was 341.9 per setup. So this was the first one, this was the second one, the third one is material handling, right? Third one is material handling. Material handling is 15%, right? So 654,500 times 15%, that makes 98175. Divided by number of material handling is distributed on the basis of material movements, which is around 120. So if you divide it with 120, 818.125. 818.125 per movement, or you may write per material movement, right? What is the last part? Last cost pool is inspection related cost, right? So inspection related cost, inspection cost is what percent? It's around 30%, right? So 30% of 30% of 654,000, sorry, 654,500 is 196,350. It's 196,350. Divided by what? Divided by total number of inspections, which are 1,000. So we'll divide it with 1,000. And we will get what? We will get 196.35 per inspection. Right? So this is basically part B. So now let's start with its C part. Let's see what we can do in C part, because we are already done till part B. In part C, it says calculate cost per unit of each product using activity-based costing principles, right? So how can you calculate cost per unit? If you see this, these steps, so we are done till here, right? Now we are supposed to absorb overheads. Let me try to change the color. Absorb overheads into the cost of the product, right? This is first thing which we need to do. And then we have to calculate total overheads and overhead per unit. And since the question is asking us to calculate cost per unit, then we have to move to this step till here, right? So let's start with its calculation. Let's see what we can do here. So now we are moving toward its a C part, right? And C part is to calculate cost per unit by using activity based costing principles, right? So there are three product D, product C, and product P, right? Product D, product C, and product P, right? So let's start absorbing overheads into the cost of the product. So first cost is setup related cost, right? The first cost is setup cost, and setup cost is around 341.9 per setup. It's 341.9 per setup. So it's a number crunching part, basically pure number crunching part. You just need to multiply, since this is cost of one setup. Product D requires 75 setups, so we will multiply this with 75. So 341.9 times 75, that makes 25,643. 5643, right? For product C, the same figure will be multiplied by 341.9 multiplied by 115. So this will be 139,319. 13931, let's make it 8, and then 480 times uh 341.9, so it's around 164,112. It's around 164,112, right? So this is basically what we need to do for all overheads. I mean, the second one is machine machine cost, which is around this one, $5.6 per machine hour, right? So we have to multiply this with these respectively with these machine hours, right, of each product. And then there is material handling cost. Material handling cost, and material handling cost is around 818.13, 818.13 per material movement. We will multiply this figure with these three figures, these three material movements, right? And then the last one is inspection related cost. Inspection cost is around 196.35. It's 196.35 per inspection. So we'll multiply this figure with these three figures, right? So I'm just you may pause this video and try to calculate this and then jump to the conclusion, or you may continue with me. So this will be 5.6 number of 5.6 is the machine related cost, and then multiply by 1125, that makes 6300. Then 5.6 times 1250, that makes 7000. And then 5.6 times 21,000, that makes 117,600, right? Then material handling cost is 818.13 times 12, because there are 12 material movements in this case, so 9817. We are considering this column, right? So the next one is 818.13 times 21, that makes 17181. It's 17181. And then the last figure is 87 multiplied by 818.13. 71177, 71177, right? Inspection cost. Now what is inspection cost? Inspection cost is around 196.35 per inspection. So you'll need to multiply this with the number of inspection, and here are the number of inspection. The first inspection is around 150. So 196.35 multiplied by 150, it's 29453. It's 29453. Then 180 multiplied by the same figure, 196.35. That makes 35343. 35343. And the last one is 670 times 196.35. That makes 131,555. 131 and 555, right? So I'm just pausing this video and trying to add all these figures. You may do this at your own, and then we will continue. All right, so these are the total overheads. I just summed all these overheads. So these are the overheads of product D, product C, product P. Now we are done till this part. We absorb overheads into the cost of the product. Now we have to calculate total overhead. That's also done, and overhead per unit. So how you will calculate overhead per unit? Simply you have to divide it with the number of units, and the number of units are 750, 1250, and 7000, right? So we will divide it with for the calculation of overhead per unit, we will divide it with 750, and what was that, 1250 divided by 1250 and divided by 7000, right? So 71214 divided by 750, that makes 94.95, 94.95, right, dollars per unit. Then it's 98842 divided by 1250, that makes around 79.07, 79.07. And then the last one is 484 and 444 divided by 7000, that makes 69.2, right? So these are overhead per unit. Now you just need to add direct cost or prime cost that we have already calculated in part A. So prime cost is this one, 23, 21, 31, right? So 23, 21, and 31. I think it was 21. Yeah. So what will be the cost per unit in this case now? Cost per unit by using activity based costing principle is 94.95 plus 23, that makes 117.95, right? And then 79.07 plus 21, that makes around 100.07, right? And the last one is 69.2 plus 31, that makes 100.2, right? So these are cost calculated by using activity based costing principles, right? So we are done with this third part as well. Third part was to calculate cost per unit of each product by using activity based costing principles. So we are done with this part as well. Now the next part is discuss why absorption costing gives better result as compared with traditional absorption costing in today's manufacturing environment. This is something which we have already discussed in the previous lecture in detail. But let me try to identify this point here. See, the most important thing is that machine related cost in this particular situation. Let me try to clean this. Machine related cost in this whole scenario is just 20%. So initially while we were doing absorption costing, we were distributing 100% overheads based on by using machine hours, but practically actually only 20% is the cost which can be affected by using machine hours, or which can be changed with is depending upon machine hours. 80% cost is not dependent upon machine hours, right? So uh, if we switch to absorption costing, it will give us better result. Why? Because mostly overheads are not related to single cost pool, they are related to multiple cost pool. And then there are three different products which the company is manufacturing, so there are more chances that overheads will be distributed in a better way. And then there is a detail of company can have detailed information about the product, and company can reduce cost, or company can control its cost by using those details, and company can identify profitable and not profitable product. So it's easier version, we can do it, we can relate it to this product, right, with this question. Now what will be the impact on pricing and profitability if company switches, right? We need to discuss this part because this part is really very important. What will happen to pricing? Number one, specifically to what will happen to pricing, right? Number one. Number two is profitability. Now let's discuss pricing first. Now what will happen to price? See, in let me try to sum it up in a simple graph. See, in absorption costing, what is the cost per unit in the absorption costing? Cost per unit under traditional absorption costing is 65, 49, and 115, right? And the cost per unit under this method is 109 17.95, approximately 18, 117.9, then 100 point something, 07, and 100.2, right? This is what this is a second. This is what this is cost per unit by using activity based costing principles, right? Now, what the question is saying, the question is saying what will be the impact on pricing and profitability. Let's discuss what will be the impact on pricing, whether we will change the selling price, whether we will continue with the same selling price. So see, it this thing we also discussed this thing earlier in the lecture, that look, the significant impact is on product D, on product C, and less impact on product P, right? Product D cost has been almost doubled in activity based costing as compared with traditional absorption costing. Product C cost is almost double, not almost, is double of what the cost of absorption costing was. So this means that if now what the options company has the first option company have is the first option company has is to increase the selling price, right? But you need to, I mean cost of product D and C significantly increase. Now if there is a significant increase in cost, then definitely that means company needs to think whether to increase the selling price. Typically, in a situation when there is no change in quality, right? So it's really very important question. It's a very important question whether customer will be interested to pay double price for the same product. This can only happen if the company is the sole provider of these kind of product. If company is having monopoly, only then this can happen, that okay fine, whatever price you are offering, customer is buying that. In that case also, if this product is a necessity, only in that case it can happen. But if this product is a luxurious product, then definitely the sales volume will reduce in that particular case, right? So we need to check whether we need to identify whether selling whether company whether customers will be willing to pay for a product, for high prices for a product which is providing exactly the same quality of the product, and which is and the reason is just and the why they and why company is asking them to pay more, because the company changed the costing method, right? So this is a this is not ridiculous, you cannot write this. This is not a good idea to charge more for the same product, for the same quality of the product, right? So what company needs to do is company cannot increase selling price in this case. Rather, company needs to control cost in this particular situation. And why this is so? Because in this case, cost controlling is required. Cost controlling is required, although this was not the part of the requirement of the question, but you can just give a hint about this thing, right? Now what about product P? Product P, selling price of product P, cost of product P decreases, right? Now, again the same question, whether we should decrease the selling price accordingly. See, the one answer is that if we are not increasing the selling price, we must not decrease the selling price. If we are saying that okay fine, cost of D and C are higher, we are not increasing the selling price. So one may argue that since we are not increasing the selling price, there is no sense of decreasing the selling price, right? So if you are in changing, then change for all three, or do nothing, right? So this can be the one sort of answer. So Cost of product P has been reduced. Now, the question is that whether company, what is the name of company? Triple Limited. Whether Triple Limited should reduce selling price as a result, right? It's very important to understand this point. In this case, we need to check the response of expected response of sales volume of product P due to decrease in selling price, due to decrease in its selling price, or in short wordings we can write, we need to check the price elasticity of demand of product P, right? In case product is price elastic or it's more responsive, if it's more responsive, then a slight decrease in selling price is going to increase sales volume by huge amount. So in that case, if product is price elastic, you should reduce the selling price. And if product is price inelastic, you should continue with the same price. Right? So you need to cover these points while writing this answer, right? Now, what else? Profitability of the product. What will be the impact on the profitability? See, in this particular situation, I think this was question was of 6 marks or maybe 8 marks. What will be the impact on pricing and profitability? Now, what will be the impact on profitability? See, in if company switches to ABC, then company will be able to identify. I mean, this is the second part of the same question, same requirement. Company need. Let me try to continue with this same thing, but let me change the color. Company needs to ABC will help. ABC will help company. Company is basically Triple Limited to identify profitable product. Identify profitable product. Why? Because if product is let's try to understand this. Product, we were thinking that the price or cost of product D is just 65. Practically the cost is not 65, practically the cost is 118. So apparently this product, for us, we were thinking that this product is a profitable product because its cost is just 65, but its cost is not 65, man. Its cost is 118. That means what? That means this is a low profitable product. So we were thinking product D and product C to be profitable product, right? But actually these are less profitable product. Why? Because we can see that its cost has been uh, understated in tradition in traditional absorption costing system, right? So two products which we were thinking that these products are profitable, those products are actually not profitable. And what about P? We were thinking that product P, cost of product P is around $115, but actually its cost is just $100. Its actual cost is not actual. It's more appropriate cost is $100, right? So that means what? That means product P, which we were thinking it's not a its cost is 115. Actually, it's more profitable because let's suppose you have calculated selling price of 120. Let's take an example. Suppose we have calculated a selling price of 120. So we were thinking that the profit margin is just $5, but actually the profit margin is $20, right? So the actual scenario is different from what we were seeing in the absorption costing. Similarly, suppose if the selling price of this product is $80, we were thinking that the company is generating $15 profit on this product. Practically, this product is generating losses for company. So, absorption costing, less profitable as cost, has been understated in absorption costing. And what about product P? Product P, we were thinking that the product was less profitable, but actually the product is more profitable, because in activity based costing, its cost is lower, its cost is approximately $15 lower as compared with the absorption costing, right? So this is a very simple idea you need to understand. I mean, price, two products are we came to know that two products are having very high cost in ABC. So we said, okay, fine, if you cannot increase the selling price unless and until you are not changing the quality of the product. And without changing the quality, if you increase the selling price, customer is not going to be happy. Obviously customer will react against it, right? Then a product there was the third product got we got third product cost less than the absorption costing, and we said that, look, you cannot reduce the selling price unless and until that you are getting benefit of that. Because whenever we reduce the selling price, the ultimate objective is to increase the sales volume. And if your sales volume and if the product is price elastic, your sales volume will increase. And if the product is price inelastic, then cost cannot be, then sales volume cannot be increased. So if elastic, in case of elastic product, continue with reduce the selling price, and in case of inelastic product, continue with the same price. And uh, and then there's the profitability part, right? So that's the end of this question, right? I hope you understood this part. Have a nice day. Take care. Have a nice day. Allah Hafiz.